Are taxes the price we pay for civilization? That's going to be the topic of today's video. So I'm actually back from a trip to Europe and the UAE. And what's interesting is during my trip to the UAE, one thing I found pretty breathtaking was the general customer service. It was frankly incredible. Even Uber drivers, you would go to a destination and they would open the door for you, and hotels and other places, sometimes you wouldn't even have to touch your bag. The customer service was absolutely incredible, something I haven't actually experienced even in places like Japan, which are renowned for customer service, and it has improved definitely even since I last visited in 2008. And it kind of got me thinking as well about other things in the UAE. Now, I'm not saying by any means the UAE is a perfect place. There are so many bad things about the UAE, which many people have said about online and offline and so on. But even when it comes to things like, I was in a taxi and I lost my wallet in the taxi, and the effort that somebody put in, it was actually another passenger. She added me on WhatsApp, she added me on LinkedIn. She went through a hell of a lot of hassle to find out who I was. She must have researched me because my WhatsApp wasn't in my wallet. And that's something I haven't found anywhere in the world. Now, don't get me wrong, it's not every day you lose your wallet, right? Most people don't, including me, don't lose their wallet very often. But the point is, here you have a 0% tax country. Well, it's not completely zero. There's VAT tax. There are increasingly a few more taxes, but by and large, it's a very low tax country, and there's 0% tax on most things. There's 0% income tax and so on. But the funny thing is, safety is absolutely fantastic. Politeness, was very good. You didn't see people swearing in an aggressive way. You also saw, as I mentioned, a lady go through a lot of effort, a passenger in a taxi, to find out who I was, to give me my wallet back. And the driver himself just went through so much effort to give me my wallet back. It was beyond belief how much effort they put in. And it kind of got me thinking, it's something I've always believed, this idea that, taxes are a sign of civilization, or if you pay taxes, that's a sign of civilization. As the saying goes, I think it's the price we pay for civilization is what some people say. It's actually simply not true, from the point of view that actually earlier on in the year, I also went to the United States, I went to California, and in comparison, if you look at LA and you compare it to Dubai, there were loads of beggars on the streets despite the very high taxes in California. There were loads of people on drugs. There was loads of people who weren't particularly polite. And it's simply not the case. It's a broad generalization and a wrong generalization to say that taxes or high taxes, which is implied in the quote, is the price we pay for civilization. And what's interesting is it isn't just rich countries as well, because some people might say, oh, the UAE, they had a lot of oil and they still have a lot of oil, and then they've actually gone towards an expat focused city where most people aren't locals, most people are expats. That's an unusual situation, right? Qatar and the UAE are two rich expat focused cities. They are unusual places, and that is absolutely true. But when I compare, say, for example, California or even London to some of the other places, like, for example, I spent some decent amount of time in Bulgaria, for example, which is actually the poorest country in the European Union, and it has the lowest taxes in the EU as well, 10% income taxes. But again, the safety level in Bulgaria, the politeness level was actually much better than California and London and many other places which are fairly kind of high tax or very high tax. So having been all around the world now, I can honestly say that this statement that some people make for political reasons is not true. It's just as much of a generalization as saying, oh, a high marriage rate is the price we pay for civilization, or a high marriage rate is a sign of civilization. The idea that just one thing makes a society more civilized is simply not the case. And moreover, in addition to that, we have to remember that if a country actually has low taxes, it actually becomes a magnet with people who actually have money, education, and so on. So same thing, in Europe. Imagine if the UK decreased taxes to 0% in one specific special economic zone. The idea that that would be an uncivilized place is just not the case, because it would actually attract in more wealthy people, more educated people, more ambitious people. And you can even see it in Europe. So one of the places I went to during my European trip was Monaco. And Monaco is a great example. Out of all the places I went in Europe, Monaco really had everything together, right? Obviously, again, it's a very different place to the UAE. It's a kind of old wealthy kind of small country just beside France. But again, you saw so many good things about Monaco, which you often can't see in some high tax places. So I'd say for anyone thinking about coming overseas, don't believe that just because a country is low tax or even 0% tax when it comes to income tax, that means it's going to be uncivilized. I think a lot of people, and I've especially noticed this in Western countries, they become quite Western centric. In other words, they think, or they just compare Western countries. So for example, it's very normal for British people when it comes to healthcare to think, oh, we don't want the American system. They don't think there could be a third system like, I don't know, the Taiwanese system or the Singaporean healthcare system. And the same when it comes to tax. A lot of people in the Western world, and indeed all around the world, they just compare themselves to countries nearby. So they think, oh, we want to be more like Sweden. They seem like a very civilized country and they've got high taxes. We don't want to be like, say, I don't know, a poor low tax country. And but I think when you actually live overseas and you actually go overseas, that's where you see there's a big world out there, and there are many different systems which exist in the world, and there are plenty of places out there which are low crime, polite, and low or sometimes pretty much zero tax. At least the main taxes like capital gains tax, income tax and so on are zero. So as the saying goes, there are many ways to skim a cat. There are dangerous high tax countries and there are very safe high tax countries. There are dangerous low tax countries and very safe low tax countries, and the same with all the things, politeness or any of the things you're looking for in the world. But don't believe for a moment that just because you don't pay that much tax, that means you're going to live in an uncivilized country. I mean, final example is look at Singapore. Singapore does have taxes, or does have income taxes, unlike the UAE and several other places I've mentioned here, like Monaco. But guess what? They have a really good welfare system for their citizens, and they've managed to do that with low taxes. So I would encourage anyone who's thinking about coming overseas and accepting a job offer in a country, don't believe that just because the country you're thinking about going to has low taxes, that it's not going to be a civilized place to live.